Hey, you want to know how to grill the perfect steak? Stick around and I'll show you how. Hello and welcome to my channel, The Semper Chef, where I show you how to cook with ease using basic techniques and principles to get you cooking like a pro. My name is Jason and this is The Semper Chef. Today I'm going to show you how to cook the proper steak on a charcoal fired grill. But first things first, we're going to show you how to light the proper fire. Okay, so first things first. First, what I like to do is spray it on the grate with a little bit of oil first before I start the fire, because it makes it a lot easier to prevent flare-ups while the coals are on the fire. Then I'll take the grate, pick it up, and then place it on the side. Then with using a chimney starter, turn it upside down, so therefore you can put the paper in on the top. Okay, so next thing you want to do is start your fire. So I got my bag of charcoal here. You can use pretty much any type. I prefer to use lumpwood charcoal, but however, the briquettes will work just fine as well. So if you don't have any newspaper for this chimney starter, there's also a trick that you can do. Just take a pair of scissors and just cut the top part, and you can use the paper for that. So what I personally like to do is take these sheets and kind of pull them apart. So therefore, you can crimp it up and then wrap it, coil it like a snake. So therefore the fire will travel all the way around and it gets an easier burn that way instead of just piling in paper. Turn it over. And just add your coals. Okay, now that we got everything set, we're going to start the fire. And then I also like using a little chunk of wood underneath just for good measure to make sure everything gets going. Okay, now that our coals are lit, nice and hot going on. And so the other thing that you want to be aware of too is that once the coals are starting to get nice and ashy up on the top, that's the perfect time to dump them right on in. And so the method that I like to do is to pour the coals on one side so you have a really hot searing side, and then no coals on the other side. So when you sear your steak on both sides, you put on the side that has no coals while you put the lid on top of it, and it starts to act as like an oven, so it finishes all the way through. Doing this method here will ensure that whatever steak, or if you do chicken, you can even do fish as well too, that it remains moist on the inside without it staying on one spot for long periods of time and burning. So we're gonna go pour our charcoals, and I like to use heat resistant gloves, or you can use welder's gloves, which are also very good as well too. I like to keep a nice tight grouping, so therefore it's easier to spread out. Make sure they got no coals stuck in the center. There you go. So you just spread it out. You got some paper right there, it's perfectly fine. Okay, so now getting a closer look on how these coals are. Get them nice and bunched together. Have somewhat of a 2 layers of coal up on top so you get a nice searing effect. And then ever so gently placing in the grate. Okay, now that we have the grate already covered with oil, it'll start to burn off the excess and create a nice carbonizing effect. So therefore, you get a non-stick surface. But it would not hurt to spray just a little bit, but be careful from flare-ups. Nothing too much. And then now, what I like to do is to make sure that the grate is nice and hot, so when you put the steaks or whatever type of meat up on there, you get the nice charring cross marks on there too. And then I'll show you how to do that in a minute as soon as the steaks are prepared. Okay, now we got our grill nice and hot. Then we also have our steak as well too. Now, one key thing to remember is that to let yourself know if the grill is hot enough is that if you could put your hand on top and then it pulls away real fast, maybe like 1 to 2 seconds, that's a very good temperature for searing. So, and then like always, give a little quick spray of oil. And be aware of a little bit of flare up, so do it in a small spritzing pattern. Okay, so now we're going to prepare a steak. I like to keep it very simple. Just some nice larger flake kosher salt, some fresh ground black pepper, and then just a little bit of olive oil to coat the steak. And so one of the tricks I like to do is take a paper towel and then pat the top part to get rid of the excess moisture. And then another trick I like to do too as well is let this sit uncovered overnight so it slightly dries on the outside. So when you put your oil, salt, and pepper and then throw it onto the grill, you'll get a better sear that way too. Okay, so very lightly, with a little bit of olive oil, just the top part. Turn it over. And add a little bit of salt. Some of the pepper as well. Okay, now we got our grill nice and hot. It's been sitting for about 20 minutes, so now the grate can have a chance to get really hot so you can get the nice cross marks on it. Also too, I like to wear a little bit of gloves so it prevents cross-contamination, but also be mindful if you're touching meat or spices, make sure that you're being very aware of that. So now we're gonna throw the steak right on the grill, and you can just grab it with your hand. Okay, so now we have the steak on, and as you notice, I like to put it on a 45-degree angle for about 60 seconds, and then once that's over, I'll turn it to another 45-degree angle to get the cross marks. Then what I also like to do is press on the steak nice and firm. You don't want to squeeze it, but nice and firm so it gets all onto the grate. I'm pressing in the sear mark. And then simply turn it 45 degrees. Okay, now that we have our cross marks on there, we're going to move it to the other side. So like I said again, we have the really hot side where it's imperative to have the grate heat up for about 20 minutes so it absorbs the heat so you get the cross marks on it. and then on the no coal side, so you can put the steak on the side as soon as it's done searing, and then put the lid right up on top. Okay, so now we're gonna close the lid. And also keep in mind too that this is a pretty thick steak, and I like to get thicker steaks because if you have something that's a little thinner and you sear on both sides, it may have a tendency to cook all the way through, and we don't want that. We want to make sure that you get a nice seared crust on the outside, but then if it's thicker, it's not going to cook as fast on the inside, so therefore you're going to have a little more leeway when you close the lid on, ensuring that the steak is going to remain nice and juicy in the center. So just close the lid and just let it cook all the way through. Okay, now while our steak is cooking, just a good rule of thumb, if you have a really thick piece of meat, is at the steak measuring test to test for doneness. So if you place your thumb and your index finger together and then you feel the meaty portion of your hand, that's rare. And then if you do to the second finger, that's medium rare, and then medium, and then well done. So basically every time you start touching your finger closer to your pinky, this will start getting tenser, therefore letting you gauge the type of steak that you like by placing either your finger up on top with some gloves very quickly, or you can use a pair of tongs. But when you are getting that technique down, feeling the doneness of your steak by pressure, it's going to take a little bit of time. So I mean, you have chefs that have been doing this for, you know, numerous amounts of years, so they just pretty much have like a sixth sense just by touching the steak, letting them know if, you know, what temperature it's at. Okay, now we had this covered for about 5 to 6 minutes, and so we're going to take the steak off the grill. And also keep in mind too, a lot of people don't know this, but there's a little hook inside these kettle grills to where you can hang on the side of your grill. Because I see a lot of people that take it off, they either put it on the ground or let it roll around, but be mindful of the hook where you can just clip it right on the side and let it rest just like that. So now we're just going to put it on the cutting board and just let it rest for about 5 minutes. I like to put a piece of tin foil up on top, lightly covered, so therefore the juice can redistribute. Okay, now that we've let time pass, we're going to uncover the steak and then cut it up. Now, one of the things to keep in mind too is that you want to cut against the grain, not with the grain, because if you cut with the grain, it's going to make it harder for the person to chew the steak. And then also, by the way, that it's now rested so the juices can redistribute, so when you cut into it, every piece that you're going to bite into is going to be moist. And then I also like to cut on a 45-degree angle as well. We got some fat right there. We're going to just cut right off and trim it. Put that on the side. All right, so now there's the bone that's running in here, so I left it attached. And you can kind of give it like a fanned out presentation as well. You can do it just like that, or you can switch it over on a plate. All right, so you can present it like that and fan it. You also cut the little tip off right here too, so you can get the color that shows. Don't want to waste any meat. So a little bit of fat right there. And then of course too, you can put your garnishes like some cherry tomatoes. Okay, and there you have it. That's how you make the perfect steak on the grill. I like to make sure that I utilize very simple techniques so everyone can understand. And so therefore, the less moving parts that there is when it comes to cooking, the easier it is that your life will be. So if you like this channel, please hit the like button and also subscribe as well too for future videos on how to get you cooking like a professional with ease. Thank you very much. My name is Jason, and I'm a classically trained chef, and today I'm going to show you how to cook the perfect steak. This channel is all about... My name is Jason, and I'm a classically trained chef. Then I'll pick the grate up and then set it on the side. And normally, like I said, you want to use I like to take the salt and then go from hot. Any sort of cross-contamination going on either. You f***ing ass.